First is for our coffee hour after the service, our social hour. We're trying a change this month because our Spiritual Adventures Forum, which is the adult religious education aspect that we have usually before the service on Sundays, is taking a break during the month of July. So we're going to see if we can massage our coffee hour a little bit for a little content to stimulate our brains. So there will be a discussion of the sermon, and breakout rooms will be available, so there can be small group discussions if you would like to do that. It's our standard Sunday Zoom number, and you can get that number from our YouTube service description, I understand. One other announcement is a personal announcement from me. And I want to share this with you. We're sending this out in our UUFYI, which is our email form of communication at noon today, so the congregation can know. But this is a letter from me, and let me just read it to you. Hello all. I've very much appreciated the way the Toledo Unitarians went beyond regular thinking in calling me to be the minister. In 2016, I was an inside candidate, and you had the confidence to call me rather than looking beyond the congregation to see who was seeking a pulpit. More important, illness wasn't a major barrier to your calling me. You knew that in 2009, I had had cancer, a tumor on the thoracic vertebrae with a spinal cord injury, before I moved to Toledo. When the search committee interviewed me in 2016, I was recovering from surgery to remove some ribs compromised by a tumor after my second bout with cancer. Then in 2017, soon after I began as the full-time settled minister, you helped to see me through another time of cancer, when a tumor on my collarbone was treated with radiation. Since then, my cancer, which ended up with the diagnosis of multiple myeloma, has been in remission, but I also shared the knowledge that it would likely return. This is a type that isn't curable at this time, but is treatable, and some people are declared to be cured because of the successful response to their treatments. Here we are in 2021, and once again, testing shows that my cancer has returned. This time there are two tumors located at the C1 and C2 vertebrae. The C1, called the atlas, is what supports the skull, and the C2, the axis, allows for head movement. Together, they're called the atlantoaxial joint. Yes, I've done some research into this. Though the tumors are very small back here, caught in plenty of time, I'm told that without addressing this, I could be paralyzed. The medical plan is to treat the tumors with radiation and to address the systemic aspect of recurring multiple myeloma with chemotherapy. That will be pills and injections. I don't think it's the type that will cause hair loss, but that doesn't matter. The treatments have already begun with the pills, and the radiation and then the injections will follow over the next few months. I don't know yet how long this treatment will be, so along with study leave and vacation time, I'll be having a lighter work schedule while I go through that process, and the chemo will likely extend into the fall, if not longer. Later on, if it's decided to be added to my treatment, the medical teams and I can talk about a bone marrow or stem cell transplant using my own marrow or cells. That isn't needed yet. An unusual twist to this fourth cancer for me is that tests of both my blood and my bone marrow were reported clean of myeloma, but the bone marrow was reanalyzed and myeloma cells were detected. That made the doctors confident in the diagnosis, and they know how to treat my symptoms. I'm now seeing a myeloma specialist at University Hospitals in Cleveland with my treatment and ongoing care through my oncologists and others at the Dana Cancer Center at the University of Toledo Medical Center. My cancer can't be cured with present knowledge of science and technology, but the treatment is effective, and I expect to be in remission again soon. I will always be a cancer patient, but this is a time for some more intensive care. So thank you for giving me the support you always have. Yours, Reverend Tim. And also, I'm certainly aware that I'm not the only cancer patient in this congregation, and many of us are going through troubles. So my thoughts are with many of us. And that's it for our announcements. Now we move to the opening words and start the service proper. This is adapted from We Are Grateful by A.D. Kindred. Of all the gifts in the world, for love we are grateful. Of all the gifts in all the world, for helping hands we are grateful. Of all the gifts in all the world, for food we are grateful. May we remember that the best gifts don't arrive wrapped in paper or bows. For love, helping hands, food, and so much more, including gifts from the trees and the plants, the animals, and even the rocks. Gifts that we often take for granted. We are grateful.
And now for our chalice lighting. This is from Web of Life by Paul Sprecher. We light this chalice for the web of life which sustains us, for the sacred circle of life in which we have our being, for the earth, the sky above and below, and for the Mother Earth, and for the mystery. And now, may we recite together the covenant of this church. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Our hymn today is number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth. For the beauty of the earth, for the splendor of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies, source of all, to thee we raise
story this morning is Mouse and Crow by Kelly Wiseman Aspreuth Jackson. There was once a crow who was very hungry. Flying over the tops of the trees, it spotted a large, tasty-looking walnut growing from one of the tallest branches below. Seeing the makings of a fine supper, the crow swooped down and plucked the dangling walnut and held it triumphantly in its beak. The crow flapped its wings happily and began to think about how best to break open the shell of the walnut. Meanwhile, on the ground below, the crow, as equally hungry mouse, saw everything that had happened and decided that it wanted that same walnut for itself. With a plan that was clever, though not particularly nice, the mouse called up to the crow high in the tree. "Say there, friend crow, what's that you have in your beak?" The crow, who was hungry enough by then to not be thinking all that clearly through its decisions, called back, "I've found a very nice walnut and am going to eat it." When the crow opened its mouth to say all that, the walnut fell out of it and fell to the ground, just as the mouse had hoped it would. But the mouse didn't count on wherever that walnut would land. When it fell, it hit the ground and it rolled into a shallow hole. The mouse ran to the hole and reached in to pull out the walnut, and that it could crunch the shell and would eat it. But the hole was just small enough that the mouse could not pull it out. With both its paws wrapped around the walnut was too wide to get back up out of the hole. The crow, meanwhile, was unhappy at having been tricked out of its supper and began to shout at the mouse down below, who couldn't leave because it was still holding on to the walnut, trying and failing to pull it back out of the hole in the ground. Now, if the two of them had worked together, they both might have gotten to enjoy some of that walnut. The crow could have pecked its sharp beak down into the hole and broken up the walnut into smaller pieces. Then the mouse could have reached in and picked each piece out, one at a time. But instead, the two of them were stuck there, arguing with each other, and both still hungry. The mouse, because it couldn't let go, and the crow, because it couldn't hold on. As we enter into a period of meditation, contemplation, and prayer, we are mindful that many among us are suffering from loss, illness, or the remaining effects of pandemic isolation. We also recognize that many of us are experiencing happy events in our lives or the lives of our friends. Both suffering and joy may be shared in these quiet moments of reflection. The meditation prompt today is adapted from Earth Day Prayer in the Spirit of Indigenous Traditions by Vern Barnett. Infinite Spirit, sometimes called Grandfather, Grandmother, Father Sky, Earth Mother, Creator, we gather to praise your creation, to honor the swimmers and crawlers, the four-leggeds and the winged ones. We give thanks for the beauty and glory of creation and open our hearts to new ways to understand our place in the universe. Not the center or focus, but a humble and balanced place where every step we take becomes a prayer, where every word we say makes harmony with the vast, vibrating cosmos, and where we know we are singing the song of life. We pray to know more deeply that we are in the garden where every plant and animal and speck of dust is a living prayer. Without our brothers and sisters of the plant and animal and mineral kingdoms, the human family would end. So we want to bless them as they bless us. We pray for humility, not to humble ourselves before presidents or priests, but before the ants and trees. For if we cannot be in true relation to the ant, we shall be outcasts of the garden. Let us cast the pollution from our eyes so we can see the glory and live with thanksgiving. Great Spirit, let us remember it is not how we talk, but how we walk. When we say we love animals, let us protect them. When we say that we love the plant people, let us honor them by living lightly on the earth. When we say we love the minerals, let us use them only in necessity and remember their rightful places. Oil belongs in the ground, not in the air through our machines. Wondrous trees, breathing life into the atmosphere, your gifts of fire and shelter, fruit and sailing are precious to us. And in many ways, you offer us leaves of knowledge. May this vision of mutual interrelatedness, cosmic interdependence, the seamless process of generations not end in enough-filled skies, blotting the sun, but rather make clean air, healthy forests, wholesome water, expansive prairies, and pungent earth nourish paths for all creatures through mountain and valley and the salt sea and through the protective atmosphere as we rejoice in the inhabitants. Hear and empower our mantra, reduce, reuse, recycle. With thanks for the surprise and mystery of it all, we pray in the name of the greater, the processes and presences and all our relations. And now may we share a moment of silence.
Spirit of life, come to me. Sing in my heart all the strength of compassion. Rise in the sea, moving the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Rose, holy rose, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Our reading before the sermon is from Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Each person, human or no, is bound to every other in a reciprocal relationship. Just as all beings have a duty to me, I have a duty to them. If an animal gives its life to feed me, I am in turn bound to support its life. If I receive a stream's gift of pure water, then I am responsible for returning a gift in kind. An integral part of a human's education is to know those duties and how to perform them.
The gift culture. If grief can be a doorway to love, then let us all weep for the world we are breaking apart so we can love it back to wholeness again. It was through her actions of reciprocity, the give and take with the land, that the original immigrant became indigenous. For all of us, becoming indigenous to the place means living as if your children's future mattered, to take care of the land as if our lives, both material and spiritual, depended on it. These quotes are from the best book I've read in decades, Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Robin Wall Kimmerer is a distinguished teaching professor of environmental and forest biology and director of the Center for Native Peoples and the Environment at the State University of New York College of Environmental Science and Forestry, and member also of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation. Her skill as a respected scientist whose patient observation has contributed greatly to our knowledge of mosses in particular, and the interconnection of all species is enhanced by her interweaving of indigenous wisdom. She has written 2 books, but especially in Braiding Sweetgrass, she is more poet than author. Her descriptions are amazingly evocative. She takes us there, to places we may not have personally experienced. She weaves symbolic themes throughout the book. Repeated themes are the numbers 3 and 4 and the interconnectedness of all living things. 3 is represented in nature, in native culture by the braiding of 3 strands of sweetgrass and willow strips used in smudging bundles and basket weaving. In native agriculture, the 3 sisters of indigenous planting, beans, corn, and squash, illustrate how the 3 plants support each other by unique structures and nutrient exchange. 4 reflects the 4 directions honored by indigenous people. It also represents the indigenous ways of knowing through all four aspects of our being: mind, body, emotion, and spirit. She says she soon discovered that Western science honors only two of those ways of knowing, mind and body. She did not question this at first, but a whole human being discovers deeper understanding by also knowing through emotion and spirit. I could probably write a dozen sermons based on this wonderful book. Don't tell TK I said that. But one of her concepts, the gift culture, deeply resonates with me and is perhaps rooted in my very DNA. Professor Kimmerer relates a story from her childhood about her father's birthday gift. Her mother always made him strawberry shortcake. Her mother's gift was making the crusty biscuits, preparing the strawberry topping, and whipping the fresh cream. The children's gift was to go out into the fields and pick the strawberries, slowly, because quite a few strayed into their mouths, and to return with berry-stained fingers to sort out the bugs from the strawberries. If they missed a few bugs, her father never complained about the extra protein. He proclaimed strawberry shortcake to be the very best possible gift. But this gift was also a gift of the plants, yielding berries so much better than store berries, ripened during transport and subsequently with a woody core and diminished sweetness. Robin Kimmerer uses this story to illustrate the difference between gift culture and commodity culture. Gifts from the earth or from each other establish a relationship. The relationship involves a responsibility to give, to receive, and to reciprocate. The field gave to the children, who gave to their dad. Robin was moved to try to give back to the strawberries. When the plants would send out red runners to make new plants, Robin was fascinated by how they would travel, looking for good places to root. She weeded out little patches of bare ground where the runners then reached down. So tiny roots grew out from the runners. At season's end, there were even more plants. The strawberries taught them this because they had given the children a gift. An ongoing relationship was established. The children reciprocated with a gift to the plants. She further comments how the nature of an object is radically changed by the way it comes into our hands as a gift or as a commodity. Socks that we buy at the store are useful. Perhaps if we were mindful enough, we might feel gratitude to the sheep for the wool and the factory worker who operated the knitting machine. But there is no relationship formed, no responsibility to the socks, no gratitude expressed beyond, if we are polite, a thank you to the clerk. Our reciprocity ends as soon as we pay for them. They become our property, and we do not write a thank you note to JCPenney or Target. The same socks, knitted by a grandmother or friend and given as a gift, are very different. The gift creates ongoing relationship. We write thank you notes if we are well brought up. If we are thoughtful, we wear them when the giver visits, even if we don't particularly like them. On an appropriate occasion, we will give a gift in return. The biggest difference between gift and commodity exchange is that a gift establishes a bond between two people. The fundamental nature of gifts is that they move, and their value increases with their passage. The more something is shared, the greater its value becomes. This is hard to understand in our firmly established commodity culture. As an example, I have done art all my life, but have rarely shared it, except with my closest friends. In the past couple of years, I have started to share my paintings on Facebook. I never suspected how valuable that sharing would become. Viewers see things in my art that I did not see, so it is shared art. I realize now that art is meant to be shared. And I have always taken immense pleasure in giving a piece of my art to someone who values it. Their pleasure means all the more to me than money. Even when I sell my art, I have much more pleasure if I have established a relationship with the buyer. The transaction is more meaningful then, and I am very fortunate because I am able to donate back most of the proceeds. Robin Kimmerer makes a further connection between gift and commodity culture. Modern capitalist societies, however wealthy, are dedicated to the concept of scarcity. The concept of abundance is foreign to the world's wealthiest people. There is never enough. And the shortage is not related to how much material wealth there really is, but to the way in which it is distributed. Scarcity is artificially created by blocking the flow between source and destination consumer. Food may rot in storage at the very same time people are starving because they cannot afford to pay for it. The result is famine for the poor and diseases of excess for the well-to-do. And just think of all the advertising dollars spent on creating a false need for products that purchased only bring further wealth to the wealthiest. Our planet that gives us sustenance is being destroyed to fuel greed and injustice, an economy that grants personhood to corporations and denies it to the actual beings, human and otherwise, is bent on destruction. We have only to look at the nearly irreparable wastelands created by excessive drilling, mining, and forestry clear-cuts to realize the inevitable result. She describes this as evidence of a Wendigo culture. Wikipedia says a Wendigo is a supernatural being belonging to the spiritual traditions of Algonquian-speaking nations in North America. Wendigos are described as powerful monsters that have a desire to kill and eat their victims. In most legends, humans transform into Wendigos because of their greed or weakness. Gift culture is based on abundance, not scarcity. In its natural state, all the elements and creatures on our generous earth are interconnected and support each other sustainably. What lessons can we derive from this comparison of gift and commodity cultures? How can we love our world back to wholeness again? Can we become indigenous to the land and take care of it as if our lives, both material and spiritual, depended on it? I think one of the salient points is the value of relationships, relationships to our sustaining earth and to each other. The gift culture is based on the nature of the relationship between giver and recipient, the reciprocity agreement, and the responsibility it implies. Do we imbue our giving with all the loving that the strawberry gift embodied? The gift from the field, the gift of the children's gathering, the gift of the mother's preparation, the gift of the father's gratitude, the reciprocity to the field. Robin Kimmerer calls the strawberries heartberries. Are our gifts to and from each other heart gifts? In Braiding Sweetgrass, the theme of gratitude occurs throughout the book. One whole chapter is devoted to the Thanksgiving address. The school of the Onondaga Nation, which borders her farm, begins and ends each school week, not with the Pledge of Allegiance, but with the Thanksgiving address, or as expressed in the native language, words that come before all else. These words place gratitude as the highest priority, gratitude to all the members of the natural world who share their gifts. One grade each week has the responsibility for delivering the address, which by nature is long, but tailored to the skills of the children speaking. The listeners reciprocate the gift of the speaker's words with their attention and by putting their minds into the place where gathered minds meet. Each call asks for the response, "Now our minds are one. Now our minds are one." The listening takes effort, especially at a time when short sound bites and immediate gratification are the norm. I wonder, in our very divided nation, how many of us could respond to the Pledge of Allegiance or any political address with, "Now our minds are one." Might gratitude be the missing element in our culture and perhaps the cure to our divisiveness? Certainly the patience indicated in the Onondaga School by weekly recitation with the Thanksgiving address. Perhaps Thanksgiving is the missing in our daily lives. Patience is admittedly not my strong suit. I think it's my life lesson, and I'm a very slow learner. But what if we were to consciously make time for our own personal recitation of thanksgiving to the earth and its gifts? What if we slowed life's busyness enough to write a thank you note for the tangible gifts from our family and friends? What if we expressed thanks for the gifts of time from our family and friends? How often do we recognize the service of our church staff, the postal worker, the clerk in a store, the restaurant server? What if we recognize that our very life is a gift that includes a relationship, an interrelationship with all beings in nature, and a responsibility to reciprocate the gift by living our lives in a way that protects and is grateful for all these beings? If we have neglected the relationship building, reciprocity, and gratitude of a gift culture, perhaps this sermon could nudge us to take time to repair that loss. May it be so.
And now it's our time of offering. There is information posted in our YouTube description, I understand, for how to make an offering. You can always go to our website, uutoledo.org, and click on Give and follow the prompts to give electronically that way. Or if you want to send us a check in the United States mail, that is possible too. We actually have a physical address, 3205 Glendale Avenue, Toledo, Ohio, 43614. And we are dependent on the giving of our congregation, and we thank you so much for your attentiveness to keeping First Unitarian Church of Toledo going during this unusual time of pandemic. Now it's our time for Coming Soon, in which we talk about what's coming for next week. As I said earlier, we are not having our Spiritual Adventures Forum on Sunday mornings during the month of July, but instead we are going to expand our coffee hour after the service to include some discussion as well as just the general visiting that we have done. And next week's service, once again, I intend to be the Sunday associate supporting our commissioned lay minister, David Strickler, who will be preaching on effervescent chemistry and fiery theology. We look forward to that. And do stay tuned. Do go to Zoom for our coffee hour after the service is over today, please. And now for our closing words. This is We Receive Fragments of Holiness by Sarah York. We receive fragments of holiness, glimpses of eternity, brief moments of insight. Let us gather them up for the precious gifts that they are, and renewed by their grace, move bodily into the unknown.
As we extinguish the chalice, please reflect on these words adapted from The World is Too Beautiful by Eric Williams. The world is too beautiful to be praised by only one voice. May you have the courage to sing your part. The world is too broken to be healed by only one set of hands. May you have the courage to use your gifts. May you enter into the relationship of gratitude and reciprocity established by giving from the heart and receiving the gifts from all the interconnected beings around us, the human and non-human beings. May you go in peace and love for each other and all of creation.
Our postlude is a highlight number 366, Hallelujah. And just a bit about this in our hymnal from Dr. Hugh Foley in 2014. He spoke of this Muskogee Creek hymn tradition that we're talking about, a pre-removal music that happened in the early 1800s and was a combination of African spirituals, Muskogee words, and perhaps some influences from their ceremonial songs. And then all that being started by the Scottish missionaries who bring in Christianity and their own singing style. All three of those merge into what we now know as Muskogee Creek hymns, which are unique musical product in America and world history. I'm learning this together.